I'm Floyd Wooderson. Welcome to another session of my personal memoir, Wolves of Hemp Street. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those bell notifications to make sure that you don't miss new chapters being uploaded weekly. Thank you for having integrity and tuning in. Chapter 14. Flip of a coin. Priorities shifted immediately following the bizarre Friday night. Rocky Road was pretty much a finished project and in the bag, so to speak. There was no reason to focus any more energy there, especially with our security force. Yes, Pompeii continued to be in the back of our minds, but with most of the product off the property, it was time to move on. Concentration shifted to Bozeman and pushing hard to finish up chopping and transporting plants from Sunflower. The priority was still to get all of the plants under one roof at Bozeman, but Sunflower still had a ways to go. So, Teddy and Julian quickly decided to move the RV there in order for Trent and Hunter to keep Justin company at night. Luckily for me, the Blue House, as we started to call it, had been fully vacated and open for use by the following week. This gave me a new place to call home. I was granted a room in the house and was deemed lead security for Bozeman. In reality, I was really the only security there. Possibly due to the crazy night that prior Friday, Seth had fully converted to working with Kelly's Grow crew and was out of the apartment within a week and a half. Due to some internal bad blood, he would soon end up terminated. That left me all alone at night, with the exterior barn bathroom as my post and a blow-up mattress eagerly awaiting me at 5 a.m. The house itself was a good 75 or so yards from the front gate and the barn. I deliberately chose the room that looked out upon the barn and the front gate, easily viewable from my blow-up mattress. I could look out during the day, early evening, or even early morning, to see if a car was there at the gate trying to get in. Each day Teddy and Faye would come by with food, supplies, wine, and anything else I should need while I was a lone security wolf. Although I was secluded, I was out of the RV and living by myself. It wouldn't stay that way, and I knew that at the time. But for the time being, I had a place where I could actually get some quality sleep, away from most of the action, in theory. We were just shy of a month on the property when I moved into the Blue House and the purchase of Bozeman was still not fully finalized. That meant the owners were still very much the owners and made sure we didn't forget it. Their farm hands were still constantly coming through the property, packing things up, moving things around, very much a presence throughout the last days of the prior ownership. We were told to stay clear when they came on our side of the property. I finally met the old man on one of his many golf cart excursions. We actually had a nice, quick little chat. He asked questions about hemp and what we were doing. Maybe he was just being polite, or maybe he was actually interested. But there was sadness behind his eyes. This had been his home and business for the past 30 years, and now he was hanging it all up. The good old boy and his wife were torn. I looked outside my window a couple hours after daybreak to see Julian, Billy, and Trish just getting out of their cars in the driveway of the Blue House. Trish, with her Western attire, was a smack-dab replica of the character Sadie Adler from the game Red Dead Redemption 2. She was a hardened, yet attractive cowgirl in her mid-30s. She had worked in the past as an event coordinator and even horseback security. Due to past experience, she helped manage the harvest and would move on to help Billy prepare for planting season the following year. With the acquisition of the property getting ever closer, there were soon to be more than 300, with all of our properties, acres of hemp to be blueprinted out, water rights to receive, and equipment to be rented or bought. When they got out of their cars on that Thursday morning, the trio briefly seemed to be setting up at a small stone picnic table. Oh, thank God. I had just moved in the night before and was fully expecting a quiet morning. Just as I thought I was safe to go back to bed, I saw Julian turn his head toward the house and point to it. Immediately the other two nodded in unison, grabbed their gear, and the three of them started walking toward the front door. "Hijo de puta," I yelled before the front door opened. The house was a manufactured home, seemingly paper thin, and unless you were alone there, was an echo hall. The three came busting in, ready for their day and fully energized after a long night's sleep. I groaned as their loud conversations and laughter rippled through my room. Nothing can be more annoying than constant laughter when you're miserable. That first day I don't believe they knew I was there. I didn't want to be a burden, as I was basically at the mercy of Julian and Billy. They had done so much for me, so I kept silent. I put in my earpods, then on top of that, my sound-canceling DJ headphones. That still didn't help. I lay there for maybe half an hour, cursing to myself and throwing a bedroom temper tantrum. Eventually I went out just to get some water, a passive-aggressive way of making my presence known. "Oh, I had no idea you were here, Floyd," Julian said apologetically. "All good. Yeah, still doing the graveyard shift here. Shit. We'll try to keep it down for you. Sorry, dude." I appreciated and respected him for acknowledging my lack of sleep, but this wasn't a one-day thing. This was the new office until the elder couple had fully vacated the premises. As each day passed, I would get more and more sleep deprived. I would have to try and plan out my sleeping schedule. It would be imperative that I got to bed right after my shift at 5 a.m. From there, I would hope to get at least 2 or 3 hours of sleep before they rocked up at 8 or 9 a.m. Then, I would have about an hour when they would go out to lunch, and finally, about 4 hours of sleep after they left at 5 p.m. This didn't always go to plan. Most of the time it seemed that I would only get that morning rest. It was brutal. I eventually bitched to Teddy when he was over one day, "I'm here staying up all night to watch a huge amount of money and I'm getting shit for sleep. It's really grinding my gears." He went on to remind me that it was only temporary, that they were very close to fully closing on the property, and they would be moving to the big house as soon as they could. Teddy also mentioned that he and Faye were moving into the master bedroom of the house when time allowed and that the house would then turn into the dedicated security house. That was totally cool with me. It seems I wasn't the only one getting aggravated at the business bunch. Day by day, more and more people were in and out of the blue house and the old man was taking notice. It was like night and day with him. Like a flip of a coin. One day he was happy as a clam, very nice and kind, and then the next, he was in your face yelling. At this moment, it was the latter. With his farmhands still coming on the property and driving down the dirt road that ran right in front of the house, they needed room in order to get by with their huge dually F350s and Ram 3500s. It doesn't help when half a dozen cars or more are parked right at the narrowest part of the road, which happened to be right in front of the house. The farmhands could barely squeeze through, let alone haul farm equipment out on their flatbed trailers. Eventually the old man couldn't take any more. One day he came flying up in his golf cart, skidding to a halt with kicked up dust following behind him. "I need everyone out of the house, right fucking now." At this point I was hiding in my room, pretending I wasn't there. I just wanted to spy on what was unfolding. Everyone there, silent with shock, filed out into the front yard one by one. "Am I still the owner of this property?" Everyone in unison nodded their heads or said yes. "Then you still have to abide by my rules," and I said to keep the damn road clear and to obey the farm's speed limit. "You didn't listen. This is my last warning." Oh man, this was world-class entertainment, and I didn't have any popcorn. Fearing they could hear me inside laughing, I put my face in the pillow and let it out. Nothing's worse than trying not to laugh when you're absolutely not supposed to. Julian took the lead, apologized, and said that it wouldn't happen again. Whereas I can see why the old man was upset, he was a little wound up that morning. But again, I knew he was going through a lot. At that point I was hoping the office crew would take their work back to Rocky Road, but that didn't happen. I just had to stick it out for a little bit longer, when in December, everything would get finalized and the property would be all ours. I could then sleep again more peacefully. Chapter 15. So it begins. Every time I breathed in, my lungs iced up. The same feeling as if you just popped an Altoids into your mouth. At the same time my eyes were watering, my face was turning red, and the wind was whistling by me, threatening to rip my beanie off. I was on a mission. I had just strapped up, jumped out of the RV, and hopped in the UTV, my destination being the mysterious lights in the rear of the field. It was 11 p.m. on a Friday night in mid-November. Surely no one should have been out in the fields at this hour. I had the shotgun resting on my lap, and with one hand on the wheel, I pulled out my phone to call Teddy. I was once again in unfamiliar land but had to investigate. It was a place that I had been before but only once or twice, and it was another world at night. I was back at Longhorn Ranch. Because of my growing good standings over the past several months, I was given more opportunities and responsibilities. I was gaining trust from all of the right people and wanted it to continue. I was shown respect among my peers and seniors, and that was big to me. After a breakup I had in my early 20s, where I wasn't respected post-breakup, I shifted my perspective. If someone shows me respect, then I'll mirror it right back. If someone does something good for me, I'll mirror it right back. If I'm treated well as an employee, I become extremely loyal. These situations were materializing only 4 months in. Quick progress. The first of these opportunities came in the form of an errand. An errand that fit into a gray area at the time. I was at Rocky Road one early evening with Billy, Justin, Trish, and Julian. Julian had a pressing matter he had to attend to but needed some seeds overnighted to a buyer in Florida and asked if I was able to mail them for him. The catch was that I had to drive 20 minutes one way to pick up the seeds, then another hour to the airport to mail them. It was 5:45 p.m., and the overnight cutoff time was 8 p.m. I still didn't have a car, and Julian had to use his truck, so I enlisted the help of Justin, telling him that I would pay for gas and dinner. As a show of good faith, if the job was successful, Julian said that the buyers would pay me $350 for my troubles. I was all in. It was a pretty fair trade, as at that point one seed was going for around $1, and they were buying 30,000 seeds. Yeah, $30,000 worth of cannabis seeds. I probably could have asked for more, but there was no need to be greedy. An extra $350 at that point was a lot for me. 6:15 p.m. out the door and into the truck. There was no more time to waste. We had to pick the seeds up from Nathan, who, as a reminder, was Julian's business partner at Global Hemp Trade, the company they started 2 years prior. 6:40 p.m. It was already dark outside when we pulled up to Nathan's apartment. He met me outside on the front lawn and handed over a couple plastic grocery sacks with 3-quart-sized mason jars filled to the brim with seeds. I asked him some quick questions over the details of this transaction, to which he replied that he honestly had no idea. He said that he was just told to get 30,000 seeds ready for delivery ASAP. I thanked him, went back to the truck, and we were on to the next stop, Office Depot. 6:50 p.m. time was ticking, and the recipients were getting impatient. Justin and I were sifting through all of the cardboard boxes, trying to visualize the jars fitting in them. The jars were deceiving, as they were big but not small. We needed a snug fit, for once they were bubble wrapped they would not move around. It came to the conclusion that we needed 2 boxes. 2 could fit in one and the other would have a roll of bubble wrap next to the jar to keep it from slamming against the walls of the box during transit. 7:05 p.m. back in the truck with the supplies. Justin helped me put the first box together before hitting the road. He knew we were on a tight clock. It was my job to finish the rest of the wrapping and packaging along the way. Normally, that doesn't seem like too tough of a task, but in this case, while moving along at an accelerated pace, both internally and externally, it gets difficult. As Justin took quick turns and accelerated quickly, I was bouncing around the cab like a bouncing ball, grabbing for the handles when needed. As one could imagine, the wrapping jobs were coming out horrendously. I knew how important appearance was for packaging, and I wasn't matching up to standards. Not at all. But I had little time and little choice. In the boxes you go. Taped. Labeled. Done. Don't care. 7:20 p.m. 20 or so minutes out. Time to take a breath. We had been moving so fast, and I had been so concentrated on coordinating logistics that I had forgotten to step back and think about what we were actually doing. Those last 20 minutes I started to digest everything. I'm about ready to mail cannabis seeds across state lines. Oh my God. I obviously knew they were technically hemp seeds, but one couldn't tell the difference just by looking at them. I had all of the paperwork that I needed to send with it to prove they were grown for low THC/high CBD, but how would authorities believe me? Are they going to plant the seeds, grow the cannabis, and then test it? That would take months. If I were caught, would I have to wait in jail until they grow them and test their CBD and THC levels? Screw that. These were catastrophic thoughts, but they were somewhat relevant to the actuality that I was smuggling across state lines. Again, this was a gray area during this time. The thought of getting caught coupled with the uncertainty of the repercussions made my armpits sweat and my heart rate rise once again. I texted Julian asking him what I should tell them if they asked me what I was shipping. Agricultural products. Leave it at that, was his response. 7:50 p.m. pulled into the parking lot. Made it in the nick of time. I noticed there was one gentleman being helped at the desk, but other than that, empty. I hurried inside, but it seemed like slow motion. Like heading to my demise. In my head I was playing the scene in the movie Blow when Johnny Depp's character is going through customs with 15 kilos of cocaine. When you're carrying drugs across the border, the idea is to remain calm. The way I do it is to think of something pleasant. A fun party, a moment of triumph, sexual encounter. I actually project myself to that place. A little transcendental meditation, if you will. I tried to think of a Red Rocks concert or a night when I shot lights out in a game of pool. I wasn't in line more than 10 seconds before the man had been helped and was on his way. "Good evening, sir," greeted the lady behind the desk. "Hey there, how are you tonight?" "Great, thanks. How can I help you?" "Well, I rushed here as quickly as I could, so I appreciate you still being able to help me. These packages need to be overnighted. Did I get here in time?" She looked up at the clock on the wall and then back to me. "I believe you should be all right, darlin'." I let out a big sigh and again thanked her for her help. As she was doing all the necessary work to get these packages ready to go, she finally came to the dreaded question I was hoping not to hear: "What are we mailing tonight?" I felt a lump in my throat, and as I swallowed I fumbled through saying, "Agricult Products Farmin'." It was as simple as that. She smiled and followed back with, "Okie dokie. Don't know how that worked, but I clearly had gotten worked up all this time for nothing. She finished the process as I paid, gathered my receipt, and was out the door. 8 p.m. time for a beer. I snapped a picture of the receipt, texted it to the buyers, and we were on our way back to town for beers and dinner on my tab. They must have been nervously standing idle because I got a text back within a minute saying, "Thank you so much. You're a very trustworthy man. If we do this again, we will work with you and Julian again." They had just spent a lot of money and put the seeds into the hands of someone they didn't know. After they wired me the $350, we never spoke again. The second opportunity was on that random Friday night in November, a month or so after the unsolved case at Sunflower. I got a call early that evening from Teddy. He told me that Kelly and his crew were hitting the town for the evening and needed someone for security until they got back. This was a huge stepping stone, as it takes a lot to build trust with Kelly. I guess I had struck a good chord with him and Connor through the good words from Teddy and Julian. I was dropped off at Longhorn and went straight over to Kelly's RV that the K&G boys were all pre-gaming in. The RV was currently home for Angel and 2 of his Cuban buddies, also from Miami. They hadn't been there more than a week or two, being hired on to do security there. However, tonight they were joining in with the fun. As I walked into the RV, I was welcomed with the smell of skunk weed and bottles of Heineken. The boys were already having a good time. There were a couple new faces to me, but all were welcoming. There were about 10 of them looking forward to the night ahead. In retrospect, it reminds me of the bunkhouse crew from the show Yellowstone. Those who know, know. "Floyd, what's up, dude?" Kelly said. "Not much, brother. Seems like I know where the party's at tonight, huh? How could you tell?" He said with a smirk. "Nah, just a little pregamin. We appreciate you stepping up and taking watch. You remember your way around, right?" "Yup, I think so, for the most part." "Cool. Feel free to use the UTV for your patrols, and here's a taser gun just in case you need it. If you need a little something to warm you up, feel free to take a couple nips of this here Balvenie 21. He opened up the freezer, exposing the half-drunk bottle. I told him I would most likely take him up on that offer. I love Balvenie. 5 more minutes of small talk and the guys were out the door, piling into several lifts. I closed and locked the gate behind them and went back to the RV to escape the cold and get situated. The RV was incredibly nice. Like luxury status. Similar to Julian's, it had 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, kitchen area, small sofa, and a lunch table. However, this one had a nice big screen TV and an electric fireplace. It was also much newer than Julian's, so it made sense that it was a bit nicer. After I settled in and got my bearings, I dimmed the lights, sat on the couch, and looked out the window facing the street. After about 45 minutes of a YouTube rabbit hole, I went outside for my first patrol. This was my first time driving a UTV since high school, so I was ready for some fun. I took off around the land, and although I was somewhat familiar with the daytime landscape, it was completely foreign to me at night. Here was another huge property sitting on 100 or more acres. There were multiple buildings to maneuver around and those large fields in the back where we shot our guns a couple months back. 15 minutes went by on my first patrol, and I was ready to get back to the RV. I would go on to repeat this every hour. At around 11 p.m., I looked back toward the rear fields and saw lights. They looked like headlights but would disappear for about 10 seconds and then reappear. Disappear. Reappear. On the third reappearance I hopped up from the couch, grabbed the shotgun and flashlight, and jumped outside directly into the UTV. I put the pedal to the metal and rocketed to the back of the property just to realize that the lights were coming from the other side of the property line, and a good distance at that. What I originally thought were just 2 headlights suddenly became half a dozen. The lights were accompanied by the sound of a loud motor, but I still couldn't make out the shape of what it was. I was confused. The best explanation I had was that it was some sort of ground UFO. I guess one would call that a UGO. I stood there for about 5 minutes before deciding it wasn't a threat. While driving back to the RV, my mind was still trying to process what it was before my dumb brain finally started working. It was a damn tractor. God, I'm an idiot. Although I have spent my fair share of time in rural areas, most of my life has been in cities. There was still much to learn about the strange phenomena in the countryside, including farmers working well into the late night. What an ignorant city boy I was. The rest of the night was hearing the coyotes laughing at me. On December 20, 2018, President Trump signed the Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018, otherwise known as the Farm Bill. Along with the long-lasting support from U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, and using some of his language from his Hemp Farming Act of 2018, the bill removed some cannabis products from the Controlled Substances Act for the first time. Here is an excerpt from Wikipedia. The 2018 Farm Bill establishes a new federal hemp regulatory system under the U.S. Department of Agriculture which aims to facilitate the commercial cultivation, processing, and marketing of hemp. The 2018 Farm Bill removes hemp and hemp seeds from the statutory definition of marijuana and the DEA schedule of controlled substances. It even makes hemp an eligible crop under the federal crop insurance program. The 2018 Farm Bill also allows the transfer of hemp and hemp-derived products across state lines provided the hemp was lawfully produced under a state or Indian tribal plan or under a license issued under the USDA plan. The hemp legalization is restricted to plants with low levels of. It may have inadvertently allowed cultivation of hemp plants with high levels of, which is also psychoactive and has since become more popular recreationally across the U.S. Nothing could have set the stage better for the upcoming year with the signing of this bill during Christmas time. This bill would bring hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people interested in entering the hemp space. Many had been waiting impatiently on the sidelines, planning out the best entry point to capitalize on this so-called green rush. This was it. The mayhem was about to begin. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap that bell notification to be reminded when new chapters are posted each week. And until next time, don't forget to have integrity.